Dee, fellow handbag designer, I'm so excited to have you on. And you've been very patient with me and my insane, past schedule. So thank you and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to finally be with you and see you over the computer. Next
Yes,
time in person, hopefully.
for sure. Yes. I felt like once we opened up about our business, I felt like we could empathize with each other of what we signed up to do. Um, but I would love to hear about your earlier beginnings before Judith Leiber, what got you interested in
Mhm.
this space, and then we'll dive in.
I always from a young age, I was always fascinated with fashion. I always say like I feel like the fashion business followed me because I grew up reading my mom's fashion magazines all the time. And then I didn't study fashion in school, but wound up kind of falling into modeling and then went to Paris to model. I went and did some little stints in Japan a couple times. So I was in the industry starting out really as a model. And then my first husband had nothing to do with the fashion business. My first husband was a tennis player, but then after the divorce, I serendipitously met Tommy. We wound up getting married. So then again, I was in the fashion mix, and Tommy, we would always discuss his lines. And he was doing one collection that was a preppy collection. And I said, "Oh my gosh, you should do this bag that I had during my preppy phase." And it was like a Papagallo bag with buttons and you could change the covers. I'm like, "You should do an adult version of this bag." And I was explaining how the covers change and you can customize them. And he's like, "Oh, wow, that's really cool. Like, you should do that." He just said like an off the cuff remark. And he said, "You should do that." And I was like, yeah, I could like that. I think that would seem like such a great idea because it's problem solving for women who are traveling and you want to pack. Bags take up a lot of space in a suitcase. I thought that's great. It's solving a problem, and I'll do that. And so I made prototypes. I knew really nothing about the fashion business, and I think that's really a good thing because if I knew what I knew now, maybe I'm not sure that I would go down that road. But we made prototypes, and then I met Mindy Grossman, who was the head of uh, HSN at that time. And she's the one I really credit her for giving me that first opportunity. And so I owe a lot to Mindy, and I'm so grateful and thankful that another woman gave a woman a leg up in the industry. And so I'm always grateful for her for that. But that's where it kind of all started. And then I decided, well, I want to take this idea and I want to make these bags not in China, but in Italy. And I want to do more elevated materials. And so then I did that and I started selling them in Saks and Harrods. But it was then that I realized I started to understand all the idiosyncrasies and all the obstacles that came along with manufacturing, meeting retailers, getting into stores, uh, all of the messy stuff that is not as much fun as designing.
I think we all forget about the messy stuff, and we're like goldfish sometimes because you have a big exciting design or a season, and then you remember the messy stuff and it's like, oh, it's like you're hit in the face. And then you somehow forget about it. It's like having children, I would say, right?
Yeah, that's a very good comparison. Yeah,
So you ended up actually selling the company to Kate Spade, is that correct?
I did. I developed this idea um, that we had all this customizations where you could buy the bag frame and then choose different covers, and it was like a whole customization idea that we named Bag Bar. And then I wound up selling that IP to Kate Spade. And I was excited about that, but I think it was during that time where they were also merging or being acquired, and then it wasn't really executed well. And I
Right.
think I saw other people doing it. I mean, everybody from Michael Kors to Anya Hinmark started doing that idea. And it was kind of like a phase that it seems to have faded faded out. I think
It'll
it's,
come back.
it's difficult. Hopefully. I mean, it's you make up these concepts, but it's just, I also had another idea that I wanted to do with shoes where you could, change the heels and make them high and low. All these things, it's very complicated for manufacturing, and not only just the manufacturing, but then getting that message out to the consumer and getting them behind it to wrap their head around it. Like anything new that you bring out to the market is always difficult. You need a lot of marketing dollars to get behind it and to get people aware of it. It's just not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. When you sold and you had that first moment happen, there's obviously the excitement of someone likes it, they want to buy me, and then you see it not become what you thought it would be. Will you talk emotionally through what that felt like and how you sort of said, okay, I'm going to bounce back and here's what's next?
Well, to be totally honest and frank with you, at the time that I sold, I was just relieved to get out from under, like, it. I'd been trying for a few years to um really get this accepted and get this in and all the retail stores. We had talked to Bloomingdale's, and like it was always, I felt like we were almost there, but we just never seemed to get there. And like I said, I didn't understand this about the fashion business. I thought like, oh, I'll go in and I'll do that. I was very naive. And because I didn't understand all those hurdles, I wasn't very patient. I was like, why is it, I couldn't understand. Well, why don't they, why aren't they taking this fabulous idea? And why don't they take it? And why isn't there enough room on the floor? This is a novel idea. This is new. They don't have this.
Yeah.
So I was like, it was like banging my head against a wall. And when Kate Spade came around to buy it, I was like, here you go, happy. So I was at that point detached from it, over it, wanted to get out and start something new. And I took a little break, and then that's when the shoes kicked in.
Right. Did you ever encounter, and I obviously know the answer in terms of the hard work and the effort, but I'm curious if people are like, "Oh, you're married to a fashion icon. It must be so easy, right?" Like you might have had ease when it comes to relationships and people that you were exposed to, but your goods still have to hit the floor. They still have to sell on their own. You still need word of mouth, right? So I'd love for you to talk through of like, yeah, I got the Mindy Grossman relationship because I was at the right place or whatever. But here's still the hard work and still all the effort that you had to do to make it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the connection part of it, connecting with the people that I needed to connect with. Tommy's been in this industry for years, so those connections were easier to come by than if I hadn't have been in the industry. But it still didn't, make it any easier when it comes to, look, these retailers have a limited amount of space. There's always a lot of goods. There's a lot of competition, and I feel like it's almost like chicken and egg. You have to prove yourself first to them, but you can't really prove yourself to them unless you're given, the proper space on the floor and the proper marketing dollars. It's just it's very chicken and egg, and it's very difficult. And even with the best of connections, that's not really a guarantee that you're going to get into the store, you're going to be successful. I mean, I think everybody definitely wanted to help and support, but it's just a very challenging, saturated, difficult business.
Yeah.
I talked to other designers that have been in this business for many, many years, and they are, I've known, without mentioning names, I know designers that you and I both know that had to close their namesake brands. They're working for other, companies. Some of them, told me their mom is still paying their mortgage. I mean, it's just, it's tough. It's a very tough, you have to have a lot of grit and a lot of determination. I'm still in it. I'm still doing it. I'm determined to crack the code. I won't stop. And, that's all I can say on that. I'm sure you can relate to that.
Very much so. Yes. I mean, I think every business obviously is hard, but I think, like we had said, fashion is harder and it takes a long time to build a brand. I
A
think
long
people
time, yeah.
nowadays think that they can go viral on TikTok and they're going to be millionaires, and that's like one great pop, but it doesn't sustain you. And when you are trying to get into the customers, um, frame of mind where they want to wear you, be proud of you, say your name as an emblem of something they've achieved, that takes a long time. And so I think, I keep telling people, readjust your time horizon. It's going to take 20 years, it doesn't take three. Um,
No.
no. And you've been in it for almost as long as me. So we both know this.
I feel like I'm approaching that 20 years. I'll be there soon, but
Yes.
not quite yet.
No. So you go into the shoe business. Talk to me about
Mm,
what made you go, all right, I've just been tortured. Now I'd like to get some more torture.
more torture. Yeah, that's kind of what it was. It was somebody that reached out to us that was had some connections with some manufacturing in Italy, and he wanted to partner. And to be, really honest, I was very hesitant. I was like, I don't know, Tommy, I'm not sure that I want to go back into this. And he's like, yeah, but if we partner, it would be great. And then he's can distribute it here, and it always seems like a good idea at that time. And we did it, and then another factor that we didn't even talk about is also like I have my own website, and running your own website and putting, the shoes on my website, all of that is very costly, So we were figuring out what the distribution would be. So we said, okay, no, we're gonna, you know, make this website, distribute it on the website, but then you've got to get traffic to the website. We were also on Farfetch, and then my partner started doing like cashmeres and all this other stuff that we were partnering with. And then finally I was like, you know what, Tommy, I don't know that this is a right partnership. So I got out of that partnership and went into a different partnership with shoes, which I am now unpartnering that partnership too. So I'm not really doing shoes anymore from after this season. And I'm not doing handbags.
You're not doing handbags as part of Judith Leiber either?
Well, of Judith Leiber, I
Okay.
am doing the
Oh,
handbags,
you're
but
saying
under
under
my
your name.
namesake
Okay.
brand. Yeah,
Okay.
I am doing Judith Leiber under, yes, but not under my namesake. I had Dee Ocleppo bags, and so there's no Dee Ocleppo bags. And after this, after holiday, there'll be no Dee Ocleppo shoes.
Okay, good. So I recently interviewed someone and she was sharing that the decision to it shouldn't be called pivoting, and it doesn't mean you're a failure. We decided that the perfect term was an evolution. It can be really hard for someone to admit, okay, this isn't working, and take that step. So I'm curious, with deciding not to partner with this person anymore, not to have shoes, were you ready to put it to bed and that you felt good about it, or was there that heartbreak a little bit at losing something? And how did you get through that?
Um, it was definitely, I would say, disappointment. Um, a little bit of a heartbreak. I try to always, I think because of my age, I've, dealt with a lot of disappointment, and I rather call it disappointment than failures. I never want to use that term. It's like so negative.
Yeah.
Um, I just think it was a disappointment because I was really feeling good about what we were designing, and I was really enjoying it, and I thought we were putting out a great product. And the problem is I felt like we were just starting to get the right momentum. As you know, you start out, it's slow, it's slow. It's like dragging a refrigerator across the beach. But then once you get like a little bit of momentum, it can push things forward. And I felt like we were maybe starting to get there, but it was a financial decision, I would say, on both parts. My partner had, at the same time that we did our partnership, he had also bought two other brands. So he was just
Choking.
also, yeah, he was choking. And as you probably know, this past couple of years has not been the best for fashion brands across the board, not just mine, just
Yeah.
everybody's. It's been a struggle for everybody.
Yes.
So I think, I look at it, I try to look at it in a very like healthy way. Like, would I say I'm heartbroken? I don't want to say I'm heartbroken. I want to say I'm really just disappointed, but I feel like there's probably some good reason. And I always feel like something better is going to come along. That's my, cup is half full, optimistic way of looking at everything. It's kind of
Yeah.
the way that I try to go through life because it's self-preservation. If not, I'd be like crying in a dark room all day.
I'll join you. I mean, I think that failure has become such a dirty word, but I also think that we fail all the time, and failure just should be more normalized as part of the entrepreneurial experience because that's where my deepest learnings have been. I'm sure you can probably look
Of
back at the
course.
lessons you've learned at that, and I think this everyone gets an award way of raising children has not set up our children to understand and accept failure,
Mm-hmm.
which is
I
more
mean,
shocking.
yeah, failure is like just, yeah, it's like lessons. And everybody that I know that's successful has had tons of failures. So it's like you're part of the club. And it shouldn't be a shameful word at
Right.
all.
Right.
And I have a son that is actually a tennis player, and in sports and tennis particularly, like you lose all the time. You lose almost every day. And I think also, when I was modeling, you go on castings, it was like rejection on a daily basis. So I I I've developed like a healthy mentality and a way of looking at it because I don't know, to me it's the only way to look at it. Otherwise, like I said, what's the alternative? You're going to go be depressed all day? No.
No, you can't.
No.
So let's talk about Judith Leiber. Obviously, it is a beloved brand. If my listeners are like, what is Judith Leiber? It is the iconic evening wear clutches
Mm-hmm.
in the most incredible shapes, characters, you name it. I would love to hear about your decision to acquire it and then how you're leading it and what you're sort of doing to usher in. I don't feel like it went anywhere, but just, to keep it going and make it more culturally relevant than it was, because it still is to me and has been.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm trying to think how many years it had to be, maybe 8 years that we acquired it. Um, and Tommy is quite friendly with Jamie Salter, who runs Authentic Brands Group, and he was the one that initially acquired it. And then Tommy and I decided to come in on the deal with him. And Tommy was like, "Well, Dee is doing bags; she could be creative director of the bags." And you know, there was an already existing a team at Judith Leiber, and they have a great team, and I work with them still. And when I first took on that assignment, I remember talking to people about it, and I would always hear the same thing, like, "Oh, my grandmother has a great collection," or "Yeah, my mom," but no one was like, "Yeah, I love it," or "I have it." So I
Yep.
felt like there was something slightly dated with it that it was bothering me. And I was looking at some of her older vintage designs, and I just wanted to like update it a little bit. I looked at the whole archive, and I remember there was a cupcake that I was like, "That's so cool." That's one of my favorites. I love the cupcake. And I wanted to do something like a little bit quirkier. And so like the first collection was called Spaceship Diner. It was like crazy. We did like a spaceship that had lights, that would, had lights around it. And we did the French fry with the pink French fry with a rainbow. And I tried to push them a little bit outside their box of what they were doing, because I just wanted to push the design a little bit to make it a little bit more quirky. And then we did the cell phone, that brick cell phone that also sort of went viral with Lady Gaga. And and it goes back to like the Instagram and social media going viral. Everybody was, going on their Insta showing the phone or the French fries. And so I knew that we were on the right track. And, introducing introducing the bags to a younger audience. I mean, we've always had, I feel like we've always owned that evening space with those bags, and it's very niche, and you can't really knock that off. The way that they're produced is, I've seen some Chinese versions, but it's nothing close to what the originals are. It's quite intensive, um, craftsmanship, the
Mhm.
way that these bags are made. So they're collector's items, they're pieces of art, they're things to be passed on. So I'm super proud of what we did. I think we successfully introduced it to a younger audience. And, it's always, the proof is always in the sales report, I like to say, that's really the bottom line. And we've really, really done well. I'm proud of what we've done on the design level and on the sales level.
Tell me how you approach continuing the success when you've had a viral moment. You know, in 2018, I felt like with my team, I was like, what's the next crossbody? We need another crossbody. Everyone has now figured it out. What's our new thing? And I would come to work every day with this like obsession over what is our next innovation? And it actually got in our way because we were so laser focused on one item instead of a more rounded out collection that served many purposes. It was like, trying to get the hit and the drug euphoria that comes with a hit. So tell me how you embraced and or approached, okay, we have this wind in our sails. We've reinvigorated the brand. It has this viral moment. Like, how have you approached keeping that going?
Well, I always feel my attitude with those things is like when you try, like I feel like a lot of those hits or those viral things are things that people, not, I won't say accidental, but they weren't intended that happens. I think that happens organically on its own. So to
Yeah.
try to design into that is like almost impossible. I don't
Yes.
think people can like say, okay, this is going to be a viral hit. I don't know, that has never been, I mean, every designer would love that, but I don't think I thought that, like with the phone, when we did that brick phone, I thought, oh my God, that's so funny and cool. But I didn't know that was necessarily, I just think you never know.
Yeah.
And so I just don't, I just try to think of be creative in my own way, what I think is cool, what I think is nice, what I think is funny, what I think people might say, oh, that's interesting, like you know or and functionality. You're always thinking of how does it function. The Judith Leiber, interestingly enough, a lot of the designs, they don't fit phones, and I get people complaining to me about that all the time, but they're functional in the sense that they're also like these pieces of art that stand on their own, and always they're a conversation piece at any table, and they're very unique.
And who puts their phone in their bag anyways? My phone's always in my hand, so who needs a pocket?
I know. I know. I always have my phone in my hand, or I hand it to my husband, or that. But they're not the. Of course, evening bags. That's a problem. Not just with Judith Leiber evening bags. With many other evening
Most.
bags, it's the phone thing. And some of ours, a lot of our evening bags do fit the phone, but it's just when you do like a funny shape,
Yeah.
it's can't get the
Yep.
phone in
Doesn't
there
work.
most of the time.
You're one of the few that is of my ilk where we when we started, it was analog and it was selling to wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the rise of social media, how we use that, how pop culture affects us in a far swifter fashion. When I started, I had one style in 25 colors and I only had to do that for a whole year and the next year was one more style, right? Now it's obviously the pace is much quicker. I'm curious with you making a luxury product that has a craftsmanship to it, how you're able to sort of move at the pace of trends and pop culture and how has that affected your design process?
We're always like have the feelers out for, like you said, pop culture, what's popular, right? As an example, we did, when Beyonce came out with her country album, we were like, country's going to be hot because Beyonce did it. So now we got it, we have to do the cowboy hat and we have to do the cowboy boot. So we did do that in Judith Leiber. And so I think that's always important. But again, it doesn't, doing that doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's going to be like a viral success. I mean,
Yep.
you can try, but I don't know. I mean, it's a really good question of what makes like a product go viral and become so popular. I mean, social media definitely has a big part in that and how that's influencing who's carrying it. And you get some very popular it girl that looks great carrying the bag, and then yes, then people want to be like her. They get the bag or the shoe or whatever it is. But I still think that stuff is just not guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's just not guaranteed. It's got to be
Yeah, and
lucky.
I would venture to say, at least on our front, anything that we've had go viral recently, it has a moment with a certain amount of people, and then it brings in a different segment that's too crazy for them, and then they want the saleable item anyways. And so it's sort of like a
Yeah.
way to get buzz and excitement, but then most people just want the safe choice.
Hmm.
What have you learned in your past and your other ventures that you feel like have been defining moments that have made your approach to Judith Lieber more successful?
I think the interesting thing about Judith Leiber, and one of the things that I think that it's been easier to be successful with Judith Leiber is that that brand has existed since 1963. So it wasn't like building a new brand.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started, Tommy would always remind me, like, when Carl took over Chanel, he just basically went to the archives and took that and made it more modern or more relevant to today. So I sort of followed that, from the design and from the mentality of where I wanted to go with Judith Leiber. It's already got its own DNA. That's a very strong DNA. So I just wanted to make it a little bit more modern, quirky. And like I said, by looking at what's going on in popular culture or, what might be trending. I never try to follow trends so much. Like I like to be sort of on trend, but not too trendy. From the other forays is just I'm a lot more patient now because I understand more clearly, like, the broader sense of the business and how challenging that can be. So I definitely feel like I'm more patient about things. I don't like to set like high expectations that can't be fulfilled because I don't want to disappoint myself. So I kind of go in it with sort of just a focusing, like we're going to do the best that we can. And hopefully this is going to hit and make people happy. But, we're always getting feedback from buyers and we always discuss, okay, the buyers want this. And that's a whole nother conversation because buyers sometimes aren't as adventurous as we would like to be as designers.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know it's the rub all the time.
All the time. So,
Yeah, we had a collaboration with Wicked that just is coming out. And in my mind, we would do here's a 10-piece collection and here are all the different ways. And then you start looking at, oh, minimums, 200 of each. Then the buyer's like, well, I have a store full of other brands that are also doing this, so I can only buy two SKUs. And then you're like, can I absorb, 800 units of my own? And you just start seeing this dream and vision go like this. And it's like, oh, now we
mm-hmm.
have two SKUs. Cool.
Yeah, been
Um,
there, done that every
yeah.
day.
Yep. Yep. And it's that, the high of the idea and the fun of the create, and then reality smacks you in the face, and you're just like, oh, okay, yes, we have to make money, we have to be profitable. And to do that, you have to almost limit yourself sometimes, which I think is hard as a creative.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that living and being married to Tommy for so long, I think that is like drilled into me almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's like great to have all these wild creative ideas, but at the end of the day, there's got to be functionality and it's got to be commercial enough to the point where it's going to sell. It's
Yeah.
great to see some of these wild designs that go down the runway, but like, are you actually going to wear that? And like, where are you wearing that to? Right. I love a lot of these like really creative, great designers. I'm like, what a cool, great show that was. But are you going to wear that? Like, where am I wearing that to? I'm obviously not wearing it to the grocery store or to, a cocktail. Like, it's crazy. It's fun. You need both, but to stay in business, there's got to be, you've got to be thinking of the functionality and if it's commercial.
Yep. Yep. So do you have anything cooking you'd like to share or that you can share that's coming up?
Yes, I've got a lot cooking, a lot cooking. I have a apparel line that just launched at Nordstrom. So fingers crossed. Hopefully that's going to go well.
Is it under
Um,
your name?
it's under my name. It's Dio by Dee Ocleppo. And so that's launched, and that's exciting because it's my first foray into apparel. Never done that before. Um, and and then I am launching a new line called Mrs. H on QVC, which is home. And I've always loved home. That's always been a passion of mine, and I've never done that before, so I'm excited about that. I have additional licenses other than the apparel. I have a jewelry license that we're doing fine jewelry with lab grown diamonds. And then I have another license with bedding that I'm launching. And then I am doing a book with Tommy about all of our homes that, we've had and some we've sold over the years, but about like interior design and just about creating these homes that we've done quite a few of over the years. So that's coming out next fall. So a lot of things in the cooker. Did
So
I forget anything?
I
And a
was,
TV show for Amazon.
oh my gosh. Okay. I was gonna like wrap up this podcast, but now I'm curious. How are you managing to oversee all of that? That's quite a lot. That's more than I thought you would say.
People are asking me that all the time. And the honest answer is I have no idea. I really do. I just do. I don't even have an assistant, like a proper assistant. I'm just, at some point I may need to capitulate and, get an assistant, but I'm very organized. I write my calendar myself and I'm, on top of it. So for the moment it's working like that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens in the future.
I'm in awe. The
It's
fact that you don't have an assistant and you are managing all that, like I need to come take some lessons and shadow you for a minute because I thought I did a lot, but you take the cake. Well, I'm very excited for all those launches. If someone wants to follow along on this journey, is it all happening on Instagram?
it's happening on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm under Mrs. Hilfiger is my personal Instagram, and then I have a Dee Ocleppo Instagram,
Awesome.
and a little bit on TikTok. I've got to get myself more, you know, more involved on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
I am. I currently have a love-hate relationship with TikTok. I feel like I've
Yeah.
tried everything for something to resonate. I think we're beginning to see traction, but I did the COVID dances, I did the college advice, I did the worker advice, I did like behind the scenes, you name it, I've tried it. So I just am trying to be patient with it and figure, I think we all want our Bobby Brown moment, but I
Yeah.
haven't
I
had
feel
that
like
yet.
I'm just going to wait for the next platform to get pop. I feel like I might just give it a pass. I'll wait because by the time I figure TikTok out, there'll be another one anyway.
Very high, yes. And it might be
Right?
canceled by America, so who knows?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, it was great. My last two questions I have for you, which I ask all my guests, is which I gave you time to marinate on, is what are we surprised to know about you?
They're surprised to know that I speak other languages. I lived in Europe for most of my adult life. So I speak Italian and I speak French. Been really out of practice for a long time, but I lived most of my adult life in Europe. And both my parents are European. So my father is Turkish from Istanbul. My mom is British. She was born in Birmingham, not Alabama, Birmingham, Birmingham in the UK. So I think a lot of people kind of are surprised to hear that about me.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't have known that, but I think you're lucky, man, to speak languages and go abroad and have it be easy is very nice.
Yeah, It's a good thing.
Is some good advice you either learned the hard way or someone gave to you that was helpful in your career journey?
I think Tommy, who is my, my best friend, my bestest, um, his advice always, and what he's proven in his own life is, just don't give up. If you are convinced and, really passionate about what you want to do, is you just never have to give up, because there's going to be so many no's along the way. And, Tommy always said, look, I had so many roadblocks, but he's like, I just would always figure out how to go above it, or how to go around it, or how to go underneath it. And, just not to give up, because I don't think, like we talked earlier about failures and things, like no one just gets like this red carpet rolled out and then, you become a success. It takes a lot of failures, a lot of no's. But I think that ultimately the people that just stick with it and stay diligent are the ones that ultimately wind up succeeding in any business.
I couldn't agree more. I talk about it in my book. Sometimes the fact that I'm still around as a brand is just because I got back up the morning that I thought I shouldn't, and I went to work. And so
100%.
yeah, it's refreshing to hear that not only Tommy has felt that, you feel that, most designers, most entrepreneurs feel that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's easier to just give up, but just get back up.
Yeah.
It was so refreshing to talk to you. I would love to eventually meet you in person. And
I'm
thank you
sure
for.
we will. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to today's episode. I also want to ask you to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it actually helps with search and algorithms. So if you love this podcast, it is an easy way to get it more visible and out there. I also want you to follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff, at RM Superwomen, and be sure to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Thank you again, and you will hear from me next week.